all 5 chapters of this letter to the Thessalonians, Paul refers to the return of the Lord. So obviously, when he first had been with them, and he had planted that church there, during the time he was in Thessalonica, 4 to 6 months, he had obviously taught them about the return of the Lord, right? But back to chapter 4, our text, verses 13 through 18, Paul starts out in verse 13 saying to them, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brethren, about those who are asleep, those who died in the Lord," believers. And Paul said, the reason why I don't want you to be uninformed is so that you will not grieve as the rest who have no hope. Why did Paul start out this section that way? Well, if you're taking note, 3 reasons. Number 1, the Christians in that church were dying. Yet, Christ hadn't yet returned. And so, these young Thessalonian believers obviously were a bit confused. And they had some questions. Question number 1, what happened to those in our church who had died as believers and the Lord has not yet come back? Where are they? Will the Lord still come for them? Or are they just forgotten? Another question they had, what's going to happen to us? What if the Lord were to come back today? What happens with us? What happens with them? And then question number 3, when's Christ going to return? So these are our 3 main questions in this section. And again, although Paul had earlier taught them about the return of the Lord, they were confused. Again, people were dying. What happened to them? And so over the next several weeks, we're going to slowly go through this section as we talk about the return of the Lord. And we're going to answer these questions. What happens to those of our loved ones who have died in the Lord and yet Christ hasn't yet come back? Where are they? What's going to happen with them? What about us? What happens if Christ comes back tomorrow? What happens with us? How does that work? And then again, the question is, when's Christ coming back, right? Legitimate question. Now, before we start to get into this, let me kind of just lay some groundwork here. Go to Matthew chapter 24. Verse 36. Our Lord, talking about his return, our Lord while he was here on earth. Look what he says. But of that day and hour, no one knows. Not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father alone. Now again, our Lord in his human nature did not know the date, right? Obviously in his divine nature, of course he knows. He's omniscient. So he's referring here to his human nature. He says, look guys, when it comes to my return, the exact time, the exact day, no one knows. Now if our Lord said that. We then have to also show that type of humility, right? Certainly, in the New Testament, we are given signs that help us see that the return of our Lord is getting closer and closer. But the exact hour, the exact day, we don't know. And so we're not interested in speculation. We're not interested in going beyond what the scriptures say. Unfortunately, today, you've got a lot of groups out there that do that very thing. How many times over the last few years have we seen so-called experts dogmatically proclaim the Lord is returning tomorrow at this time? And you've got people who believe that. They're running for the hills. They're stocking up on food. In fact, there are some people on so-called Christian TV that actually have started their TV shows preying on the people who are so afraid of the return of the Lord. Hey, he's going to be coming. Here's some food you can stock up on. Here's what you're going to have to do. They're making money off of that. We don't know the exact hour. We don't know the exact day. Our Lord said in his human nature. Even the Son of Man doesn't know. So we need to show that humility. That's number one. Number two, stay right there in the same chapter. Our Lord, verse 42, gives us a warning. He says, therefore, since you don't know the exact hour or date, he says, therefore, be on the alert. For you do not know which day your Lord is coming. Be sure of this, that if the head of the house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have been on the alert and would not have allowed his house to be broken into. For this reason, you must also be ready. For the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not think he will. So, two things here regarding the return of the Lord. No need to speculate as to the hour or day. You're not going to know that. But you do know he's coming. And you better be ready. What does that mean? Well, verse 45. Who then is the faithful and sensible slave whom his master put in charge of his household to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, that he will put him in charge of all his possessions. Christian, you've been entrusted by your Lord through his Spirit, spiritual gifts, opportunities to serve the Lord in the power of the Spirit for the glory of the Lord. And we better all be busy, involved in the Lord's business. No slacking. No apathy. No going, I wonder what time he's coming. I don't feel like doing it. It's taking too long to come. Hey, you want to go out and do something else? Let's go play around in the world. You don't know when he's coming. And he's going to come at a time when you least expect it. Question over the last few days. Had your Lord shown up? What would he have found you doing? Would you have been excited to see him? Or maybe a bit embarrassed? Who then is the faithful and sensible slave of the master? The one who is busy in the master's business.